Right on, guys. This is those have been following my rigid cystoscopy videos. Will have heard me talk about going for my catheter training, which I had this morning. I'm currently on day 14 of recovery from my rigid cystoscopy, and the discomfort is nearly gone. Not quite, but it's nearly there. I did speak to Mr. Hodgson at the end of last week. He said it wouldn't be expected to have discomfort still, given my anatomy. So this one today is about my intermittent self-catheterization training, or ISC, or CISC, clean intermittent self-catheterization, as they call it. Now, if you found yourself at this point, it could be one of many reasons. Really, you could be struggling with urine retention due to underactive bladder. You could have been made paralysed, which is extremely unfortunate. My condolences to you. You could be like me. It's a pre-runner to possibly have Botox or more invasive procedures, which could result in having to self-catheterize. This video is not for those training to catheterize someone else. Your training will be very specific, probably quite in-depth. You'll be training on male and female prosthetics. Unfortunately, this training doesn't include indwelling catheters, which I was hoping it would do. But there is, I have had an option with the ISCs, which will suffice to using an indwelling catheter. So just bear that in mind, ladies. If you're, this is obviously from a male point of view. Again, with bifid urethra. Again, your training will be a little bit different, obviously, because of your anatomy. I think it's going to be done with mirrors, lying on a bed, etc. So obviously from a male point of view. So again, up to Trilis Urology Unit. Didn't have to fast this time. Yay! Didn't have to go with a full bladder. There's nothing on the paperwork states going with a full bladder. I just have what I had to drink normally in the morning. Obviously, the longer you can hold off going for a pee will probably help, but there is no specific information on the letter. If you've got your catheter training like I did have too close to a cystoscopy, they will move it They will move it back. Trust me, you aren't going to want to have this certainly after a cystoscopy. And considering this was originally booked in for 4 days after my rigid cystoscopy, I wouldn't want to have done that then. So obviously bear that in mind as well, really. So yeah, so turn up the unit, give them a time slot. Usual situation. Urology unit is filled up with old men. I think some of them were there for cystoscopies by the looks of it. The only youngster there again, which is not what you want to see when you're 35, really. So one of the nurses I've seen before calls me in to one of the side rooms, and they give you a pamphlet and just ask you what you know about the procedure and why you've been asked to come up for the procedure. I said there could be many reasons. Mine is just a precaution to a point on the basis I might have Botox. This hasn't been taken off the table yet, but it's seeming more and more unlikely that I will have Botox. So they then send you back out again to read through this booklet, which basically gives you all this, again, they're male and female orientated. So if you're a bloke, you have a male one. If you're a female, you have a female one. Which gives you all the rundown on the intermittent catheters, what they're used for, why you would use them, picture diagrams and how you insert them, and then obviously your suppliers and your 2 different options of catheters at the end, really. When they put insulation in, it's dusty. Yeah, so you sit out again for a little while, because again your training, they say they allow for 2 hours, and I think this is mainly really on the basis that you're being fitted in around your dynamics and flow tests and cystoscopies. And they're obviously scanning people for urine residue and such like. Yeah, so no, I think we was in the unit, I don't know, just over an hour, really. So it says 2 hours. You aren't going to be in there for 2 hours having your training. Not if you're being taught self-intermittent. Like I said, if you're going to learning to catheterize somebody, your training is going to be much different. They'll be scheduled in. It's a much more formal affair. So I get called back into the to the side room. This is where the fun begins, basically. I said, a biggest part of this is cleanliness, making sure your hands are thoroughly clean. If I've got to do this on site, eventually it's going to be a lot harder because I'm going to have clothes that are going to be dirty. Maybe be able to do this in the portaloo. It's not going to be quite so clean as if you were, I don't know, at home doing it, or an office toilet, or such like. So yeah, cleanliness is a big part because you do not want to be giving yourself an infection. And at this present moment in time, I can still urinate perfectly well. So no, at the moment I won't have to catheterize. So your my missus come in as well. She wanted to watch. She didn't feel, she wasn't quite so keen after seeing it, but she wanted to watch anyway. So yeah, you if your bloke say no, obviously if you're in a wheelchair, you obviously do it sitting in your wheelchair. But if you can comfortably stand, like you would do to pee normally, they'll have you stand in. It's obviously all curtained off. No, you've only got one nurse in there. It's about as much modesty if you're ever going to hope to have in one of these urological procedures. So basically, you'd go in. They lay out the catheters. There's a pot on the bed with a pad, and you'll just be asked to drop your trousers and your underwear. I took my jacket off, so there isn't too much hanging in the way. And obviously, this is after washing my hands. And then they'll show you how to. Well, they Trides, they teach you how to use their Flowfric catheters, which have got they're lubricated and then get activated with saline water. You have a special pouch at the top which you squeeze that releases the water down into the catheter. The one I was training with, which is just a pipe catheter. I said you can see all this on YouTube. They demonstrate the different types. I did ask to be sent on some of the ones with the bags because obviously it's nice to have that if you're struggling for a toilet, or if I was in a vehicle, something like that. It's probably the closest thing you're going to get to a indwelling catheter with a bag. So they set it all up for you. You've got two parts to it. You got the end outlet, and then you've got the sleeve which you hold. Basically, that's what you feed it in with. Obviously, all this time you've got to keep this constantly clean. You can't leave it touch anything. And obviously, out on site, this is going to be a struggle if I have to self-catheterize all the time. Obviously, in a clean environment, it's not too much of a worry. So we had to go with a 14 French gauge first. So most adults will use a 14 or 16 French gauge catheter. It did seem a little big. I thought, well, we'll give it a go, and I managed to get it up as far as the sphincter reasonably comfortably, and I just couldn't get it in. He was a real struggle. And they say cough and bear down, and no matter what I did, he was bare tender trying to get it in. I think they do advise. I think they do tend to say that younger men, because it's unusual for us having to go in for these procedures really, with tighter muscles and pelvic floor and all the rest of it, cystoscopies, catheters in general are more painful because everything is much tighter, everything's much younger and much tighter than if you were maybe 65, 70, going in and having been taught self-catheterization. I said I am extremely young. It's probably people half my age have been taught this, depending on what bladder problems they got. But no, for general going on, no, I am a young man to be having these kind of problems. Which is all explained in my previous videos. So I said to the nurse, I said, can we have something a bit smaller? Because she hadn't told me the size at that point. She said, I'll go off and she said, I can get some other size catheters. Well, she come back with 12 gauge. Because I didn't realise the one we was using had been a 14. I said, oh, that looks a little bit smaller. We'll have to go with that. And it did slip up inside a little bit more comfortably. It was a bit easier up through the shaft. And he take a fair bit of relaxing, and he's a bit unusual because obviously like during a cystoscopy or obviously urodynamics, your catheters are very fine anyway. Someone else is pushing, so you just got to sort of get on with it. But when you're sort of doing yourself like the old putting the plaster off job or digging out a piece of steel in your hand, is harder when you're doing it yourself. But with a little bit of a at this point as well, I was get to the point I could do with going for a pee, which is good because when you know full well that when the catheter goes up in, you're going to have urine flow, and it's going to be um, going to be a good demonstration basically. You don't want to be at this point with an empty bladder. If you get the hospital and feel you ought to be drinking a bit more, they'll come out with a jug and some. You can get yourself a coffee, or they'll come out with a jug of some water and some mugs, sort of thing. So it would help really if you don't want to be breaking your neck for a pee, but you certainly could do with needing a pee by the time they show you catheter training. Mainly just so that there's urine flow. I said no. I said no. I wasn't breaking my neck, but I was sort of getting to that point I could comfortably deal with a pee. So eventually it did pop up in through the sphincter, and yeah, there we go. It's all flows. You have a little pot out in front of you, and they sort of teach you how to make sure. It's surprising. It doesn't want to stay in. It's not like this is why the balloons are so critical on their indwelling catheters, because the sphincter will naturally want to push. It's a bit like your anal sphincter, and it naturally wants to push anything out. So I did have a couple of times have to slide it in a little bit further. Or you've got to be careful not to go mad with it, especially like for me. I got quite small capacities where people can perforate or damage the inside of their bladders. So you have to sort of gently just ease them in a bit more to make sure you've got your urine flow, and then just quietly ease them out. Just you get towards the end, basically to make sure you get it all. Now my residue was somewhere around about 50 to 100 mils, which is well under the 150 limit when I went for my flow test, and I went for my urodynamics. So the assumption is the residue has not gotten any worse. It didn't look like I'd passed a particularly large amount more than if I'd gone for a pee ordinarily. So the assumption is the residue I would normally have from going for a pee ordinarily would be quite small. And then you pull the catheter out and you throw it away. They give you some. I said no. I had my top on. Nurse couldn't see an awful lot, and like I said, then these urology nurses, unless you're hung like Shergar. If you're wondering who Shergar is, look up four-legged. No, it's not a porn star. Four-legged Shergar on the internet. Yeah, they're not particularly. They're not going to typically fascinated or particularly bothered. At the end of the day, I said my T-shirt was covering most of it anyway, so you probably got more dignity than when you're having a cystoscopy or urodynamics at the end of the day. And that was that really. You do feel a little bit aggravated after. The only biggest thing I had really was near the end of I'd had the catheter inserted, and I was like, oh, I feel really. Mind you, I'd had breakfast this morning, real queasy. Like it's like, almost washing machine. And I pulled the catheter out. I thought it'll go when the catheter comes out. I thought, oh no, wipe yourself off, pull me trousers and my boxers up again. And the nurse said, you're right. I said, I'm feeling real queasy. So I sat down on the bed. She said it is quite common. So don't worry if you get this feeling. Apparently, it's quite common when you first start catheterizing. It must be something to do with the nerves up through the groin into the belly. But it is, it doesn't feel very pleasant, sort of thing. It sort of takes your mind off the discomfort from the catheter. You do feel a little bit aggravated, not as bad as after your flexible cystoscopy, but something's been up in there that shouldn't have been up in there. Basically, it wasn't severe, but you got that feeling that that wasn't there before. Basically, obviously if you're used to indwelling catheters, your body may be a bit more accustomed to that. And I think like everything, the more times you do intermittent catheterization, the more the body gets used to the sensation, and more the sphincter probably gets accustomed to it, and it probably gets to a point that the body ignores the discomfort, basically. A bit like if you've got back problems or knee problems, body's only going to ignore so much pain. It's not pain really, it is discomfort. And that was that really. That's about be on end all. I asked to get sent home with some of the catheters with the bags on them, because obviously for a journey that'd be more beneficial to me. If I'm struggling for a toilet sort thing, you could, to a point, you could almost go in the back of the van. Really, if you were struggling for you was out on site, you didn't really have much in the way of portaloos on site sort of thing. As long as you got somewhere a bit of privacy and somewhere fairly clean. I said you've got to keep everything clean. So us blokes who work in the trade, it's not ideal. It's not like you're working in an office situation or being at home. And it's quite a quick process. I was worried it was going to take a bit longer. I suppose, like everything, the more often you do it, it's no quicker really than just flopping it out and going for a pee in the toilet generally, really. The biggest problem I found, and here we go again, is when I came home. Because I tried to use the 14. The 14 has obviously stretched things a little bit more than the 12 may have done. And as soon as I went to go for a pee, I thought, ouch, this is going to hurt. Probably about as much as it did when I had the flexible cystoscopy. So luckily, I still had some lidocaine. So I, given the old dollop of lidocaine, some painkillers. And when I got to site, I went for a pee in a jug of warm water, and it did hurt. I suppose, like everything, if you're using an intermittent catheter all the time, you're never probably going to experience this, because next time you want to go for a pee, you just put your lube catheter up through, and urine's never going to come down through the urethra. As long as it's not a serious pain, putting the next catheter up through. That's the only thing I will say, because I obviously haven't gone away from the training having to catheterize every time. Some of you might know that might be the start, and you'll be asked to catheterize every time after that. At this present moment in time, it is just training, just as a forerunner to other treatments. So I'm going to have a bit of discomfort, I think, for the next, certainly till I go to bed, I expect. Just from where that 14 gauge was a little bit of bifid urethra was really a little bit too big. It seemed all right going in, but I think it is aggravated things. I said I still had some minimal discomfort anyway from the rigid cystoscopy still lingering, so that hasn't helped either at the end of the day. So hopefully by tomorrow things will settle back down again. As they got me bag of catheters there, they registered me with a supplier, and if I need something more in the future, you basically get registered with a supplier when you leave the hospital. You then ring them up to request what you want. Basically, they I think it's done all through your doctor. It's all posted out. How they handle the prescription charge, if you pay for your prescription, I'm not quite too sure. Whether you get sent an invoice from the doctor's surgery, whether you have to go and pay a prescription charge to the doctor's surgery, whether you pay a prescription charge to the supplier, I'm not quite too sure how that happens at the present moment in time. What I got at the moment was free from the hospital, but like I said, they'll sit there in the bag for the minute. I said if yours is a bit like mine, it's a forerunner to future treatment. It might not hurt every now and again, just to do one, really, just to keep your hand in. Just so you aren't at a point where, oh shit, I've got to do it now. Just so you keep in your fresh in your mind. So they've got the booklet there anyway, so all the information is there, really. Yeah, so if you've been referred for intermittent self-catheterization, nothing really to worry about. Again, I said you'll keep more modesty than you will with most of the urological procedures. Women, your ladies, your training can be a little bit different because your anatomy is a little bit different. Things are a little bit more hard to find, and obviously, I said this is done from a male point of view, so I can't comment on the female training, but it'll be similar but different. That's about it, really. So yeah, that'll hopefully, guys, if you watch some of my videos, hopefully it's a little bit of help to somebody. Hopefully this video might be a little bit of help to somebody. And any comments, stick them in the box below. Hold on, cheers and bye.